Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, America. We're broadcasting live, of course, from the Gulf Coast. Want to welcome all of our Gulf Coast listeners and our listeners from coast to coast, as well as our international listeners, and then those, of course, that will pick up the podcast tomorrow. God bless you. Thank you for being a part of Freedom Friday today. Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer. Well, as I've been promising you, on the line with us is director Joel Gilbert from the blockbuster new film, the blockbuster new movie, Dreams from My Real Father. You can find out all about that movie and Joel Gilbert at ObamasRealFather.com, ObamasRealFather.com. If you can't remember that, I know some of you are driving home right now and you can't write all that down. If you get home and say, now, what was it? Just go to my site, CarlGallups.com, go to the Freedom Friday link and go onto the VIP guests. You'll see his name, Joel Gilbert. Click on his name. It'll take you right to the website. Joel Gilbert is the director of a couple of other films prior to this, The Atomic Jihad, Ahmadinejad's Coming War, and Obama's Politics of Defeat. I know some of you have heard of that and have seen that. 2010 it was produced. And then in 2008 it produced the movie Farewell Israel, Bush, Iran, and the Revolt of Islam. He's the contributing editor for FamilySecurityMatters.org, a foreign policy analyst, winner of the Hudson Institute Film Festival Prize 2010, has a degree from the University of London, 1986, and also an MBA from George Washington University. Joel, on your website, you have a quote that's become quite famous now. I've heard it around about in many different ways. In fact, I've heard you do interviews over talk radio from coast to coast, and so we're honored to have you today. But your quote is there. It says, to understand Obama's plan for America, the question is not where's the birth certificate. The question is, who is the real father? Tell us about that, Joel. Welcome to Freedom Friday.
That's correct. I started looking into Obama's background when I was producing the film Atomic Jihad, and I listened to about maybe 100 speeches of Obama's and noticed a very strange pattern. Every time he spoke about the rich and the poor, he would start screaming. He'd put on his preacher voice. He would get excited and happy. And then on the next subject, he'd go back to normal again. And he did this on every single speech. So it was obvious this guy had a passion for class struggle. And it was quite confusing because I only knew he'd been to Harvard Law, Ivy Leagues, and exclusive prep school. So I read his biography, Dreams from My Father, and right away the whole book stands out as a life journey in this little-known world of American Marxism and socialism. He goes to Occidental to study with Marxist professors. He goes to socialist scholars conferences. This is like the Communist International in New York. He goes to be an organizer, a socialist profession, Project Vote. And I say, where did this come from? But he keeps talking about Frank. This guy Frank throughout the entire book is a main character.
Right, so he just calls the character in his book Frank, a first name Frank, but he doesn't give a last name.
Right, it's the only person in the book he actually refers to by his real name. Everyone else has a pseudonym. So this is 1995, this book came out. Interestingly, when he recorded the audiobook version in 2005 when he was running for Senate, Obama does the narration himself. He's the voiceover guy, right. And Frank is completely scrubbed from the book, even though he's the main character.
Oh, my gosh.
So Obama's been engaging in a pattern of document forgery, document manipulation to hide his connection to Frank Marshall Davis, because if it was shown that Frank Marshall Davis was both his biological father, who became his ideological father, Obama's fairy tale of the Kenyan goat herd father that he bamboozled a middle-class America with in 2008 would be revealed as a fraud.
Right.
He advertised himself as this multicultural ideal. He stood above politics. He would bring people together. So people thought he had this inspiring family story. Wow, his father was a goat herder. But in fact, Obama intentionally hid a deeply disturbing family background to hide this Marxist political foundation. Obama admits he was raised by Davis from age 9 to 18, and the evidence shows that he was indoctrinated by Davis in this Marxist ideology. You can see it in his entire life journey, and you can just hear it coming out now in his campaign speeches. He talks about the rich don't pay their fair share, the top 1% are oppressing everybody else. If you built a business, you didn't do it. It's on the backs of the proletariat. You see, this is classic Marxism that Obama's father learned in Chicago. Frank Marshall Davis, Obama's real father, worked at the Chicago Star, was a journalist for this communist newspaper. He worked there with Valerie Jarrett's father-in-law, by the way, Vernon Jarrett.
Right.
And his father was indoctrinated in the Marxist worldview only 15 years after the Bolshevik Revolution. And then Obama's father, Frank Marshall Davis, was ordered to Hawaii by the Kremlin to help foment a Soviet or a communist takeover of the island to expel U.S. naval forces. The Kremlin felt that U.S. naval forces in Hawaii were an obstacle to Soviet expansion in Asia. So Obama's father was a suspected and probable Soviet agent. So Obama should come clean now in this election and be elected on his merits. He has to drop the goat herder nonsense and tell the truth and say, my father was a Communist Party propagandist under FBI surveillance for 20 years and a Soviet agent. He indoctrinated me into Marxism. Please vote for me.
Yeah, please vote for me. And by the way, if you look at my policies for the last 4 years, you can see every bit of that.
every bit of it. So this is why the film is out now. It's been the #1 documentary on Amazon. It's also on DVD. It's on Amazon Instant Video. You can see it online. And we hit Netflix last week. Already over a couple of 100,000 views. So the word is getting out. We have been interviewed by a lot of newspapers and mostly conservative talk radio, been trying to break through nationally. So we started an interesting publicity effort about a month ago, 8 weeks ago, started sending free copies to certain states to force and embarrass the media into covering the content of the film.
Right.
I've been to Hawaii twice investigating Obama's background and looking into his real father, and that's twice as much as all the mainstream media combined.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Joel.
I was saying, so the story revealed itself. Obama spent so much time on misdirection. His style is to minimize, misdirect, and lie about anything about his past to get people away from understanding the real political foundation in Marxism. Right. And I get emails every day, 100 emails from people. Once they see the film, they say two things. Number one, good people don't like it when they've been lied to.
Right.
Number two, they say the media failed to protect us, and look at this guy's background.
That's right. They didn't vet him.
We thought they would have looked at it.
Yeah, they didn't vet him. It's just amazing to me, Joel. Folks, listen, we're talking to director Joel Gilbert, the producer-director of this blockbuster film that's just rocking the world, rocking the nation, Dreams from My Real Father. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, I'm going to have director Joel Gilbert tell you about that film from beginning to end, give you the foundation for it, give you the premise for it. He'll tell you all about where you can get it, where you can see it. And we'll tell you more about that when we come back. Director Joel Gilbert, Dreams from My Real Father, on Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. We'll be right back after the brief timeout.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
Warning, the following program is highly controversial and may be offensive to some selected people groups. Listener discretion is advised. And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, America, and we are broadcasting live. And on the line with us is Director Joel Gilbert here on Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. He's the director-producer of the blockbuster new movie. It's sweeping the nation by storm, Dreams from My Real Father. Dreams from My Real Father. He's produced a couple of other movies that have been big political documentaries, The Atomic Jihad, Ahmadinejad's Coming War, and Obama's Politics of Defeat. He produced that in 2010. Also, Farewell, Israel, Bush, Iran, and the Revolt of Islam in 2008. He's the winner of the Hudson Institute Film Festival Prize in 2010. Director Joel Gilbert, welcome to Freedom Friday.
Okay, great to be back here with you.
Man, it's good to have you back. Listen, here's what I want to do. I want you to do. Tell us about your movie. Listen, our listening audience, Freedom Friday, most of them have been with me for years, and we're picking up new folks all the time, but they're pretty up to snuff on this whole Obama fraud debacle. I mean, from the birth certificate, Social Security number, on and on and on and on. But your movie, Dreams from My Real Father, and your research has brought a whole new, fresh, profound angle to this. I mean, you investigated his life, his own claims from his own books, and measured that up against information that you've uncovered. So you've produced this movie that's going crazy from coast to coast, Dreams from My Real Father. Educate us, Joel Gilbert. Tell us about it. What's the storyline? What is it that you've uncovered? Why is your movie important? And while you're doing that, tell people where they can get it, where they can see it, how they can immediately grab a hold of your movie.
Okay, appreciate it. So first of all, it's obamasrealfather.com is the website. You can get the DVD, check the trailer, all the breaking news. You can also watch it instantly on Netflix, Amazon Instant Video. I took the book, Dreams from My Father, Obama's book, and realized once I saw that he spent half the book emphasizing this Kenyan goat herder father and looking at the fact that he looked just like Frank Marshall Davis and nothing like Kenyan.
Yeah.
That set me off on an investigation in Hawaii into Frank Marshall Davis's background, into the background of Obama. First thing I establish in the film is that Obama's story of his early childhood is completely false. Amazingly, Obama confirmed that himself publicly 3 weeks ago, and all the media refused to connect the dots together. Obama claimed that when he was 3 years old, his Kenyan father went to Harvard, could not refuse a Harvard education, so the family broke up at that point. The fact is, we have the transcripts from the University of Washington in Seattle where his mother was enrolled 3 weeks after he was born, took him there while the Kenyan remained in Hawaii for another year. So we have all the evidence, on top of that, much more evidence, that the Kenyan was simply a sham marriage. There were very few African Americans on the island, so they used this Kenyan student simply to cover up an affair, nothing more at the time. But 3 weeks ago, Obama says, and he tweets it as well, I've got the tweet, he says, I was born in Hawaii to a single mother. Opposite story he's been telling for years.
Yeah.
So we know Obama's story is false. And I said, well, what could be true? Obama is raised by Frank Marshall Davis from age 9. His mother brings him back from Indonesia with instructions to the grandfather, I'm going back to Indonesia. Let me back up 1 second. I discovered about 30 intimate photos of Obama's mother at Frank Marshall Davis's house. He was a pornographer, head of a camera club, and wrote a book about all the nefarious activities he had with underage women, a lot of them from the mainland once they came over. So Obama's mother brings him back from Indonesia, age 9, tells the grandfather, I'm going back to Indonesia, but you know that 65-year-old communist pornographer guy I used to hang out with, he should be raising Barry while I'm away.
Yeah.
Now, this makes no sense unless it's the real father. Obama is raised by Davis, and all the evidence shows that he was indoctrinated by Davis. He found out about the fact that Davis was his father in his early teens. He admits to finding his birth certificate, and he goes through this big crisis. So my film, Dreams from My Real Father, simply is a factual biography of Obama compared to his book, which is a big fairy tale. There are many things that I debunk from Obama's book, such as Obama claims a string of racial incidents in Hawaii growing up. And I talked to several of his high school classmates, and they said it was all made up, not true. Hawaii was a multiracial society. They had a lot of respect for black people. They even called them Royal Hawaiians. And Obama was multiracial himself. So this all his stories of being racially discriminated against, I was told by his best friend in high school that it wasn't not even close, nonsense.
Yeah.
So Obama invented a lot of this in order to try to get sympathy, to get people on the south side of Chicago to support him. He was hoping to run for mayor one day. So, you know, just on that alone, there are people who've suffered discrimination. So to invent these stories of discrimination in Hawaii, of all places, is very offensive, I think, to anybody who's familiar with the struggle of people who have suffered some discrimination. So the book, my film takes you all the way through Obama's real life history, including his involvement with Bill Ayers, in New York when he was at Columbia. Bill Ayers' father, Thomas Ayers, is instrumental in bringing Obama from New York to Chicago to head up something called the Developing Communities Project. This is an organization, a communist-run organization, that was having trouble recruiting black people into their movement because communism was atheist and black people were mostly religious. They belonged to all these churches, so they rejected these communist groups. So Bill Ayers' father got a grant from the Woods Fund to bring Obama from New York to Chicago. He was going to be their front man with a black face. And this was the socialist strategy. Obama attended with Bill Ayers these socialist conferences in New York where they had a strategy. The strategy was to use minorities and black people especially were the number one targets, to use them to help collapse capitalism.
Right.
And later Obama went on to, as a lawyer, represented Acorn in suing Citibank, 1995. This was the beginning of the subprime mortgage crisis. Obama was in on it, and he's one of the founders of it. He forced Citibank to settle racial discrimination charges and lower their lending standards in Chicago. Acorn then takes this model to the White House through Henry Cisneros.
Right. No, I'm just saying, right. I'm following you. I'm seeing it unfold.
This is what's wrong with the narrative today, is Obama says, we don't want to elect Romney. It'll take us back to the policies that got us into this mess.
Right.
It's a total lie. Obama himself started the subprime mortgage crisis in Chicago with Acorn. They take that model he put together to sue these banks to force them to lend to minorities, even if they're not qualified. Bill Clinton adopts this policy and forces Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac across the system to require banks to lower their lending standards. So this was started by Obama. It took about 12 years, and it crashed the economy. This was by design. They wanted to collapse the capitalist system so they could then bring on this socialization, government control, end the free market system. So these were all code words that they used at the time. They called them fair play, problem solving. This was their way to fool people and trick minorities into following this system to destroy the American free markets. In this election, Obama has a new code word. He says, I want to help middle-class families. Help middle-class families. I want to help the middle class. Socialist economies do not have a middle class.
Right.
Socialist economies eliminate the middle class. That's why for the socialists and these Marxists like Obama, the middle class are just pawns. Yeah. They use them and discard them. That's why Obama said the middle class clings to their guns and religion. They disdain the middle class. So by the end of the next term, if Obama is reelected, you'll see that the middle class health care is just going to be given away to poor and illegals. Middle class's employers are going to continue to be taxed and regulated out of business, and any middle class retirement saving will just evaporate into a bankrupt socialist state.
Right.
And the middle class will disappear. America will have one big lower class with political elites that control all the wealth. This is where we're headed. This is the Marxist model. It's complete nonsense. It doesn't work. It leads to biological destruction, economic ruin. But this is the vision of Obama's real father, the Marxist communist economics of this failed economics from Karl Marx that failed everywhere in the world. It does not apply to the American system. It doesn't work here. We have a society where even people in the lower classes have access to big screen TVs and cars and trips and have the ability to work and improve themselves. But Obama and his wife, Michelle, all these Marxists, they compare America to a socialist utopia.
Right.
So for them, America is hell. Like Michelle Obama said, we have our souls are broken in this country.
Right.
You can't get food, you can't get health care. You have to break down the system. This is the rat's nest of Chicago Marxists arrived in the White House, and they're trying to turn America into that one-party system.
Yeah, and we're going to do something about that soon. Joel, I've got to let you go. We're slap out of time. Wow, what an awesome interview. Can I have you back?
Anytime. Everyone, please check out the DVD again, obamasrealfather.com.
Thank you so much. Director Joel Gilbert. Joel, stay on the line. I want to talk to you after we go off the air. Well, folks, listen, you've been listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. I want to tell you, this whole program has been brought to you today by local yokel Claude and Melanie Duvall, Highway 90 East and Ward Basin Road at the corner. There's 4 businesses in one. It's a convenience store, a deli, a gas station, a car wash. These folks have been involved in this community. Claude and his family have been involved in this community for 50 years. The local yokel is an awesome business. They support WEBY. They keep Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups on the air. You need to go by and do business with them. Convenience store, 5,000 individual items. A deli, you can eat in, you can eat out. Gas station, 100% ethanol-free gasoline, some of the best prices in Northwest Florida. And a car wash, state-of-the-art, touchless, the only place where I get my car washed when I'm in Northwest Florida. That's the local yokel, Claude and Melanie Duvall, the corner of Highway 90 East and Ward Basin Road. Tell them that you heard it on Freedom Friday and that you appreciate it. Folks, you were just listening to Director Joel Gilbert, the director of the blockbuster new movie that's taking the nation by storm, Dreams from My Real Father. Go to obamasrealfather.com, obamasrealfather.com, and check it all out. You can get the DVD there. You heard Joel Gilbert tell you all of the different places where you could see it and or get the DVD. You can get it on Amazon's On Demand. You can watch it tonight if you'd like to do it, right there. If you can't remember that website, it's obamasrealfather.com. Go to carlgallups.com, go to the Freedom Friday section, and click on Joel Gilbert's name. He is the director. Well, folks, it's another episode wrapped up. Freedom Friday, Carl Gallups, Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer. Let me remind you and encourage you, go to carlgallups.com, check out my #1 best-selling book on Amazon, The Magic Man in the Sky, Effectively Defending the Christian Faith. Hey, it's coming close to Christmas. It'd make an excellent Christmas gift. Get your copy today at Amazon or the WND Superstore. We'll be back next week with another lineup of great guests. I look forward to seeing you then. Folks, just a few more weeks, counting down to the possibility of turning this nation around. Boy, Joel Gilbert just showed us why that was so important and why presidential elections make a difference. Speaking of making a difference, you and I, we're making that difference. With God's help and God's blessing, Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. We'll see you next week. God bless you. God bless America.